Yeah.
Manu, thanks for joining us on Inverclyde TV.
What's it called?
Inverclyde TV.
Inverclyde.
Inverclyde.
Like Inverness, but
Yeah.
Inverclyde.
Yeah. I know you've got a.
If we break that up, what does that mean? Inver. Like Inverness or Inverclyde? What does it mean?
Inver means a way.
Inver.
I need to check that out.
The Inver.
Yeah.
And the Outver.
Yeah.
At least it's not Outverclyde.
It's probably
Inverclyde,
other
okay.
side of the Clyde or something like that. It's,
Okay, yeah. Flowing into the Clyde.
Yeah, it's probably something else.
Because I just asked somebody, they were from like Mother's Well, and I said, what's Mother's Well? And they went, I don't know. And so Wikipedia, they lived there their whole life.
Yeah.
And I said, Mother's Well is like, there's actually a plaque in the middle of the town, you know.
Well, there's got to be a story to that, you know.
Well, it's an old well that was dedicated to the Virgin Mary, you know, and so it was the Mother's Well, you know. And it first appeared on a map in like 1500 or something like that, and it was called Moderveld, because a Dutch guy came down and mapped it, you know. But yeah, but it was just funny, you know. Names, they're important things.
I know you've got...
Because you're all a bunch of Vikings, you know.
Yeah.
Did you know?
Yeah. Where we're from, 2 minutes down the road, or 10 minutes down the road, is a town called Largs, and that's where they used to, you know, raid until they settled there. You know, so we're all, you know, Viking ancestors at some point.
Exactly.
Family tree.
Look, you're still tying your hair back like that.
Yeah. So
he's not on camera, but he looks like a Viking.
It's got to be done. Speaking of family trees, I know your grandfather is from Scotland.
Yeah.
Is this the first time you've actually been in Scotland?
No, I came to Scotland years ago. You know, the very first television show I did called Paradise Beach. We came and did a promo trip, and we came to Glasgow and Edinburgh. And but that was like, I don't know, I was like 20 years old. And you know, but it was exciting. You know, it was kind of an exciting time. But I came back again another time and went to Loch Ness. You know, and that was just I was a camera assistant for a company, and we flew over the loch with the doors off this helicopter, like flying past Inverness Castle and everything like that. And that was mind-blowing. That was a really good way to see it. But yeah. No, this is the first time I've been back in about 15 years. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, saying that, I know that originally you played rugby. How did you transition from rugby to acting? It seems very...
you know, I mean...
Two very different kind of paths, you know?
Yeah, but I'm two different type of guys, you know, going on quickly, you know, the Deathstroke mask. Yeah. Because, you know, when I was, when I was 15, you know, the way I got into the arts, well, basically it was by necessity, you know, because my mother and brother were both killed in 2 different car accidents when I was like 15. So I was a young guy, kind of like with a lot to deal with at a young age, you know. I mean, to me, when I was looking at the blackboard in school, you know, it was a blur at that stage, you know. It's just, there's so much going on in your head, you know, when something like that happens in your life that you've got to sort of try to find a way to deal with it. So, you know, I found the arts, you know, and then I found sport, rugby, you know. So if I needed to let out the physical side of things, you know, I'd get on the rugby field and run head on into some guy, you know, that was twice as big as me. You know, that's how or try to knock somebody else down. You know what I mean? So. Or I got bigger, you know. There was one time where I actually just got bigger so that the physics wouldn't be so against me, you know what I mean? And you know, so the rugby was a big part of my life between probably the age of 16 and 21. I was playing like first grade, and you know, actually was meant to try out for the Australian schoolboys team, but I had to do Swan Lake, the ballet, on the same weekend. And so
I thought that was, you were going to say that was necessary. If you didn't do Swan Lake, you didn't get try out for the rugby?
Brother, I did like Billy Elliot, right? Yeah. Just had to get past his father. Yeah. I had to get past the whole first 15 rugby team, you know, to go don a pair of tights and get onto the stage and do Swan Lake, you know. So there was a real sort of, you know, 2 things that I was doing in my life. You know, one was very physical and one was the emotional side, you know, and I needed that as a young man, you know, having lost my mother, you know, there was this necessity to kind of like, you know, fill that void. And I found that when I was doing ballet, I sort of magnated, you know, I went toward pas de deux, so dancing with the girl, with the ballerina, you know, and all of that kind of like that, you know, dancing with the female energy, you know, that sort of helped me, you know, with my, you know, dilemma in life, you know. And so, you know, I decided, a few years after doing ballet and dancing, I did modern dance as well and all that sort of stuff. But, I decided that I wanted to use my voice, like dancing, you don't say anything, right? So there was this sort of silent emotional release going on, but there was no voice coming out, So I went and tried out for a drama school that was actually dance and drama. And it was kind of like, I was too scared to go for any of the big drama schools, like RADA in London. There's one called NIDA in Australia, and I was just too, I didn't think I'd have, I thought you had to have more going for you in terms of experience to try out for something like that. So I tried out for a dance drama course because I knew the dancing I could get in with, And I did, they gladly accepted me. And I was doing that course, and when I auditioned, and I actually got into my first role, which was a show called Paradise Beach in Australia. And from there was really no turning back. I kind of, when I'd finished that role, I got to New York. I went for a trip to America, and I ended up meeting a lady called Anna Strasberg, who ran a Lee Strasberg school, which is the major acting school, And I met her in a restaurant, and she invited me to the school the next day in New York. Sat me down, played a video of Lee Strasberg speaking about because he'd passed away by then. He'd passed away a couple of years beforehand, and she was running the school. And I sat down and I watched this video about Lee Strasberg, and then I came out of the room and she said, Manu, what did you think? And I said, yeah, it's really compelling, it's compelling, especially the emotional identification, because for me that was very real, I mean, for me as an artist, to this very day, the gravity of some of the things that I had to go through at a young age and have gone through for the rest of my life, you know what I mean? In terms of dealing with, hardship, like things like, if you've lost your mother and a brother, or if you're part of that world where death has been right at your doorstep, like my brother actually died in my hands, and then to have that as part of your artistic, I don't know what you call it, your artistic tools. This is where as an artist you have a responsibility, I guess, or you take on the responsibility of signaling at these levels of emotions. See, because I don't believe any of, whether it be Spartacus or Arrow or the Orc or any of this is so much about words. I think it's more about signaling. It's like somebody on a piano. Like 100 people can play the same piece of piano, but it's who's going to dig deep. Who's really going to dig deep to try to hit that note that's going to send out a resonance that people are going to go, oh, I mean, you sit down and listen to classical music. Why does it make you well up and what with music, musically, and then that's the way I like to look at my acting as well, because there's moments where I'm either Slade in the dark zone or Crixus in the dark zone, or rising out of the dark into this kind of celebration of life that you've survived, that you've managed to get through the hardship.
I was going to say
it's those moments that I thrive as an actor, and
what you said there about your kind of your background, you had the rugby and you had the dance and the acting. It's very evident in your roles because you do have this very physical presence, very action orientated, but at the same time you do bring a depth to it. There is more there under the surface, and that's obviously something that's came right through your entire, from what you were saying, like from 15 to now. It's something that's it's been there the whole time. Well,
I mean, it's one thing to fight to survive, right? But it's another thing to see that side of a man, especially. I mean, I can't speak for women, but for men, if you can turn them to the point where you understand what's going on here. Because men aren't very good at expressing themselves like that, right? But you see, when you're filming, they give you the opportunity to play it as though nobody's looking, but the audience is watching, right? So when I'm Slade and I'm in those moments, the camera's on him, but the eye's not meant to be on him. And I know where to go in certain ways to sort of, hit that note that can touch the audience, that can make them think like, what's he thinking? What's the, oh my God, I feel for him, or oh my God, he's on the verge of some, explosion of energy, anger or revenge or something like this, these sorts of notes that you have to hit as an actor. You know, it's really important to, well, I mean, it's important for me to dig deep and find those notes and add that complexity to performance. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the challenge. You know.
Yeah. And it makes you stand out as well. You know, especially in something like Spartacus or Arrow, where there are lots of other characters. You know, everybody's fighting for screen time. You know, if you've got presence like that and you can stand out, you know, use it. You know, it stands you in good stead. And it obviously works because now, you know, you're back in Arrow, you know, the one that the fans wanted back more than anything else, and now it's happened.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Can you talk about what happened with Arrow? And
with Arrow, it was simply just it was kind of like a thing where the studios had plans. You know, Warner Brothers Studios wanted to use Deathstroke in the film.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was this definite sort of block on the ability for them to use Deathstroke on a television series for a couple of years. You know, and I didn't really know about it at the time, but, you know, it was explained to me by Mark Guggenheim, the producer, you know, when he brought me back this time. It would have been nice if I got a little email to say, you know, Manu, this is why you're not coming back. But I mean, these guys are moving always very fast in production, and they're very busy. So, you know, it was something that sort of, I felt very sort of vulnerable to it for a couple of years, because I was thinking, like, well, if the fans want me back and all this sort of stuff, then how come we're not doing more episodes?
Yeah.
And but since the Batman film fell over, you know, and but now it's coming back again. But this sort of has set up a bit of a dichotomy, because it fell over and nobody knew where it was going to go again. So Warner Brothers gave Mark Guggenheim the go ahead to allow my character to come back for a couple of episodes, and now I've come back. You know, now Batman started up again, and so. There could be the emergence of that character in the new Batman film. They're actually playing it down, but I think they're playing it down because because we played it up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you know, they're probably going to wait for the last minute announcement that Joe Manganiello is going to step into the role. Yeah. And all the best to him. You know, Joe's actually a friend of mine, and I like the guy a lot. You know, and he's a great guy. And I really hope that, you know, he gets the filmic opportunity to get up there and make it look as amazing and glamorous as what film can make moments, and I'd wish him the best. But I can say this, I mean, I'm lucky that I got given, and I think this goes for all the roles that I'm known for, really. I was given, you know, the opportunity that you can only get in series television to flesh out a character over time. You know, I mean, it's like fast food, or, you know, versus slow cooking. You know, I mean, or a one-night stand versus a relationship. I like to phrase it sometimes. I mean, sometimes you need to really have a relationship with a character. You know, the TV series can enable you that over a long period of time. You know, I mean, of course, film has still got the idea of the glamour, but I think even a lot of film actors are starting to step down, because the quality of television has risen so much, and the types of devices and TV screens or film screens that come out of the roof and stuff, you know, things that we watch at home now give us as an immersed, you know, experience. And especially with VR now, you know, with VR coming along, all of a sudden it's not even going to make sense to go and line up at a cinema, because you'll be able to put the headset on at home, and you'll be in as much of an immersed scenario as you will at any cinema. So, you know, I've kind of enjoyed the 10 years of being sort of involved in good quality TV series. I mean, of course, as an actor, you always kind of want to get that idea of getting in a film and potentially getting an Academy Award nomination or something like that, you know. And you know, I kind of, you know, I'd love to have that opportunity, as any actor would, but you know, I can't complain about the types of roles and the types of acting opportunities that I've gotten in the TV work that I've done.
It's been quite choice roles, you know, Crixus and, you know, Slade, two kind of standout characters, you know, fan favourite characters.
Even Al-Anon, you know, Al-Anon in Shannara. I mean, Shannara hasn't sort of exploded into the same sort of popularity that Spartacus or Arrow, but the production quality on it's really amazing. And you know, the character that I play on there, the Al-Anon druid, is definitely a different kind of approach. Again, I talk about it in terms of a signal. You know, like Crixus and Slade both were quite broken characters in some ways, you know, and things could get really messy for them because of either a lack of, I don't know, protagonistic qualities.
Yeah.
You know, whereas
that's something I was actually going to ask you about.
Whereas Alan is real protagonist, you know, so giving that kind of almost a fatherly, you know, always constantly being kind of like in the right, you know, and having justification for everything that he does, you know, creates a sort of a new kind of role, a new signal for me as an actor. And, you know, I've really enjoyed the role. I mean, we've got a sort of a following for that show. But our second season's about to come out, and I'm just hoping, mostly because the production quality of the show is so high. I mean, it really is like Lord of the Rings for television. And the production quality looks like that. It's just some of the stuff that I really can't talk about. Otherwise I get in trouble. But you know, if it's polished a little bit more, this show, it could really work. And if it's promoted and well managed by a network. You know, Netflix, one of the big things is we're on Netflix now with Shannara, and since it's been on Netflix, it's like being on the super freeway now. People are starting to pay attention to it.
It's a wider audience, you know, a lot more people have got access to Netflix.
Well, we were on MTV, and MTV never really committed to the show. You know, they never really gave it, oh, this is our child, we really want to present it to the world, you know. It's kind of like we came along, they don't quite know what to do, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, you know what, we're going to concentrate on this sort of stuff. You know, they're having a bunch of meetings deciding what MTV's vision for the future is, and Shannara kind of wasn't ever sort of embraced into the center of that.
It wasn't really an MTV show either, you know, it kind of stood out on its own, you know, like you had all the kind of reality stuff, but that was the only real kind of
I think they were trying to make it an MTV show whilst it was something else as well, and somewhere in the middle of that it kind of but you know, now we've been picked up by Spike Television, but you know, at the same time it's kind of like it's a show that you know, if you know, it's like Spartacus, but you know, Spartacus were picked up by a network called Stars, and nobody knew about Stars. You know, not a lot of other big shows came onto Stars, and we totally outrated them, like Boss, that had Kelsey Grammer and all these sort of big name people. You know, there was Magic City and a whole bunch of other shows that were big name actors were in it, but Spartacus just thrived because it was so different. And we were kind of like the success for that network, the first success of that network. And you know, maybe Shannara Chronicles, you know, will prove itself the hard way, like Spartacus did. You know, maybe. You know, Spartacus was very special, and so is Shannara Chronicles. Except, you know, first of all, I think with Shannara Chronicles, you know, like you've got like Terry Brooks, the writer, who's written like a book that sold 50 million copies. So really, it's proven material. It's a matter of making that proven material fit well with a network and their idea of what they want to do with that wonderful book series by Terry Brooks, you know. And I hope for Terry's sake that you know, that the degree of success the show and his books deserves in the general public reaches to some point of success, you know. But we've been bounced around, but like an orphan child being bounced between parents, you know.
I think sometimes though it can take something like change a channel, or you know, like turning up on Netflix. To get a bit of groundswell going, you know, just to kind of let the fans know that where you are, you know, that this is where we are now. A bit of promotion on Spike's part, and you know, who knows what's next. But just before we wrap up, one question, and obviously I know you probably can't talk a lot about the next season of Arrow, but going back to what you were saying about like the signals and like how you use them, you know, in your characters, have you changed anything about Slade and like how you portray them from the beginning? Oh,
totally. Slade's involvement in season 6 is going to be something completely different to what fans have seen in the past. You know, I mean, really the whole past story on Arrow and the focus has been upon the Slade Wilson backstory on the island with Oliver, and then the betrayal based upon Mirakuru and the Shadow storyline. So that's one set of. I mean, I'm glad that story has kind of been put to sleep now in a certain way, because to me that was kind of like, it was grey matter in terms of how Deathstroke was in the DC comic book world, and the type of character he was, and then what he became on the TV show Arrow. You know, he became kind of a bit of a, you know, drugged out kind of, you know, jealous about a girl called Shadow, kind of Looney Tune kind of character, in a way, you know what I mean? And I really fought hard to try to keep the degree of integrity for the character by making out as though the drug was really compelling, to making out as though the emotions with Shadow were deep and seated and had a degree of merit to it, you know, because once I started killing Oliver's mother and stuff like that, that character could have been hated.
Yeah.
By the Arrowverse. Except I remember thinking the next convention I'm going to go to, people are going to be throwing things at me, or women are going to be coming up and go, how could you do that to a woman? You know, I really expected that to happen, and it kind of didn't. And the reason it didn't, I think, and you know, is because there was always a kind of a Shakespearean twist to that whole story. It was almost like it was like Othello, you know, and Iago whispering in the ear, you know, with Shadow there and stuff like that. And so I think constantly the audience was going, is Slade gonna, wrong decision, don't do it, you know. But when you set up a character to have heart and to have, you know, a good honest intent and be sort of, you know, have virtues in a certain way, then you can hold an audience, even if you go right over to the dark side. And I'm so thankful for Mark Guggenheim for allowing the opportunity to. And it amazed me that in one scene I could be let out of the prison cell on Lian Yu and say to Oliver, "Kid, I remember it all, but it was like a bad dream." And he looks at me and he goes, "Slade, the Mirakuru is worn off?" And I say, yeah, kid. And then within the same episode, I'm turning around giving him some advice about his own life. You know, and it was incredible that you could shift it that quickly. I thought it couldn't be retrieved that well, so quickly. But the stuff that's coming up in season 6 is all to do with Slade's son, Joe. Now there was a little scene in season 1 on the island where Oliver and Slade were over a fireplace and Slade mentioned his son. And that was always one of my favourite scenes from the first and second season, was this little moment where Slade was reflective about his life. Because besides from that one little comment over the fireplace, Slade never really talked about his life prior to Lian Yu, you know. So it was a little window of looking into Slade, you know. And some of those comments, you know, the fans look back at that particular scene, you know, come to life in season 6, because Joe shows up in a certain way, and Slade is reintroduced to a son who he's had multiple experiences with over the past, and it's wonderfully complex. And you know, as a sort of an actor, it started bringing a whole new color into Slade, but even a more demanding one, because of the blood ties, you know, because of the fact that he's my son, you know. That for me was really compelling. You know, I have children of my own, so this moment has brought about a kind of a really interesting study into how, you know, sort of how a father has to deal, you know, with his child, you know, as opposed to a soldier dealing with enemies or anything like this. You know, it's much more personal, it's much deeper, and you know, I sank everything, and I've got, you know, probably good reason to. I sank everything into this role, you know, to make it palpable, and the script existed in a certain way. And when I read the script, I rang up Mark and I said, "Mark, you know what? This is such a good script, but this, and this, if we did these things, this could be so much more powerful." And you know, I thank him for allowing me to make those comments as an actor, and to help make that input into the 2 episodes as well, because it ended up being a real. You know, at one stage, there's the first episode is called Deathstroke Returns. The next episode is called Promises Kept. Now, Promises Kept was the one where there was a whole bunch of little stuff that could happen on top of what was already written, or underneath what was already written, and we started to play with that. And as we played with it, it became much more of a grind and a demand on both, you know, Slade and Joe and Oliver and all the, you know, well, mostly just us three characters, essential to the story. But you know, I think the fans are going to, you know, if they ever thought that they knew anything about Slade, then, you know, this is a whole new window of opportunity to look at a character and how he became kind of like, again, how he ended up wearing this mask of Deathstroke. Mm.
Yeah, excellent. I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for your time. I know you've got some other interviews. But,
thank you, bro.
Thank you.